Fill your belly in praise of my mother, Georgina de Riggs. Rest in peace. All the wonderful people of Grenada who made bread. Well, I sat in a class once during my college days, and I silently smiled while the professor declared, "The French, they love bread." He went on to say that the French ate bread with almost every meal. Other students laughed because of the way he emphasized the word love. I smiled because he helped me resurrect some old and distant but pleasant memories. I remember the leavened bread. Who remembers the leavened bread? Well, that was popular, a regular part of our diet while we were growing up in Grenada. I recall other types of bread too. The Vienna bread came to mind, the penny bread, and that famous homemade bread that Mommy and other Grenadian mothers used to bake. Now, even the prisoners made appetizing bread up on Richmond Hill. In those days, prisoners had to work, They used to make them clean the cemeteries and all over Grenada and baking bread and doing other things. That was the bread people who ended up in the hospital used to eat, prison bread. But I'll tell you something, the prison bread used to taste real good. Some people did not know they could bake or they could make bread until they ended up in prison. They made bread and they cut down huge mahogany trees on the hills. Now the leavened bread was made with fermented dough. Small children, when I was growing up, received one leavened bread, and we had to call that George. The portion increased with maturity. Now, by the time we started attending secondary school, we were munching on 1.5 leavened bread. Now, when times were rough, boy, sometimes we used to catch wind in it, It was bread and Kool-Aid. By graduation, we graduated to 2 leavened bread. And then we started to work, and we had a choice of putting aside the bread altogether. And we opted for fig and saltfish sauce. Well, I love fig and saltfish sauce in the morning. And some people still prefer that. Now, if you want to know how much Grenadians loved the bread back in my time, ask Tony, rest in peace, who used to sell in Prophet Shop, Mr. Prophet Shop on the Carnage. Boy, people used to stand in line to buy hot bread and butter, bread and pig snout, bread and salami. They used to get it wrapped up in brown paper to eat as they watch the movie in the Empire Cinema. Movies like The Hell and Back or Django. I will never forget a man who sold bread and saltfish sauce on the Carnage. There was a man on the Carnage who sold bread and saltfish sauce. I can't remember his name. Somebody help me here. He pulled a crowd also. My good friend Raphael, rest in peace, my school friend. Raphael made up a song about him. Raphael could have been a Calypsonian. And Raphael's song, sorrel sweet like sugar, Mobby bitter like gall, ginger beer burning like pepper, but bread and saltfish sauce, boy, that's soft like sponge. Bread went well with almost anything. Bread and fish cake, anyone? Well, I knew a student who came to a school I went to with bread and cake butter. Boy, I saw the anger in his face when he discovered somebody stole his bread and hid his container. In those days, we used to have something called a carrier. They hid it near a wall. Well, I thought he was going to end up in a crazy house. Somebody stole the man bread and cake butter. You remember cake butter? The next day, he came to school with more bread and cake butter. And he warned his friends not to eat if anybody offered it to them. Someone said that he had put sandbox. You remember sandbox? Or something like sandbox in the bread and butter. Sandbox can send you in the toilet for hours. You'll believe it's a battle of Waterloo going on in there. Well, I knew a man in Belmont where he used to eat bread and pepper sauce. Boy, I never see that. Boy, that was something, eh? Bread and pepper sauce. He ate bread and the pepper sauce Miss Margaret made. Miss Margaret made a wonderful pepper sauce. Nice tasting pepper sauce, eh? Now try to steal somebody's bread and Christmas ham, and you will see how fast that person will call Mr. Lacroix or Mr. Otway or Bailey to bury you. There is no enticing smell like the smell of bread baking in the ovens of Grenada. Like, think of all the areas in Grenada where bread were baked. Get up 1:40 in the morning and walk past Homemade or Ideal Bakery. Take a deep breath. Immediately you see a real significance in the verse. Give us this day our daily bread. Adds real meaning and significance. Inhale and smell. Get the smell of bread baking in Grand Roy or Guave, and you will be tempted to drop your anchor right there. You ain't going anywhere. You just sit there and savor the fragrant smell of bread baking. So yes, we have a rich baking tradition. We're not lazy people. We used to make all kind of things. My mother made tamban ball. My roots made tamban ball also. People are making stuff all over the cottage industry. The cottage industry, as Mr. Hudson George would tell you, a legacy, baking, legacy left by baking icons like Prax. Who remembers Prax? Boy, we have to remember them people. We have to be like the Chinese and Americans and the Japanese. Don't let your people die. Put it down, document it. Prax and Specky. Miss Molly, you remember Miss Molly? Wilfred Bakery. Wilfred baked a good bread. Flush. And Mr. Thomas, who almost put Blue Danube. You remember Blue Danube? Almost put Blue Danube out of the runnings or the bakings, as you would say. And now to the homemade bread. Boy, that bread tastes good even when it is stale. One little piece and you're ready to go. And any woman will tell you that nothing is better than a good Grenadian loaf. Now don't put any meaning to my words, eh? It is better than a Ghana plantain, or the plantain that Brian Nancy gave a shilling. You remember that story with Brian Nancy and them plantain? The old scamp, you end up getting all the plantain. Let your grandparents tell you about that. As Sparrow would say, so satisfying. It is good because it is made with love. You see, we had love. Nowadays, people cussing each other, boy, I get fed up with that. But we had love, indeed. It is kneaded with Grenadian affection. A man called Alan, yeah, he had opened a bakery here in Brooklyn. And he was noted for his famous bread. Tasty bread, very tasty. Boy, West Indian people still line up in the cold, boy, in the cold, to buy his bread on Saturday and Sunday mornings and other days of the week. And the Grenadians who stand in line too, they line up just the way we used to line up at Palmer School to be flogged. Every time I spot them, I feel like pulling them aside, pull them aside and inquire, what happened to the bread? your mommy used to bake? What happened to the bread your mommy used to bake? By the way, thank you, Mr. Delbert Baptiste, for those nice words. Remembering when I taught history at St. John's Christian Secondary School, those are very nice words that you said about me on Facebook yesterday while I was a teacher there, teaching European history. Thank you very much, my friend. It's always good to get your praises while you breathe. God bless you. And God bless everybody who love bread. Anthony Wendell the Riggs.